I think it's been called the constitution of ASEAN, and I think that's a fair description. But one thing to remember is that it really establishes structure and processes for how ASEAN will function moving forward. So in and of itself, the Charter does not contain a lot of substance on substantive issues like things, details on migrant workers, women's rights, details on human rights. It doesn't. What it does do is that it contains certain aspirational goals to guide how ASEAN operates, and it also sets out the purpose of ASEAN. And I'll come to that. So coming back to what the Charter actually does do, like I said, it establishes the structure and processes for how ASEAN operates, and so that breaks down into different things. Firstly, and I think very crucially, the Charter confers legal personality on ASEAN, which is a lawyer's kind of thing, but that's important because now ASEAN as a legal entity is a legal entity, is a legal person, and you can hold property and then the contract, so on and so forth. The Charter also establishes various organs for ASEAN. So it establishes the ASEAN Summit as which is the meeting of all the different heads of state or heads of government of ASEAN countries. It establishes the ASEAN Summit as the ultimate decision-making body within ASEAN. It also establishes the three, it concretizes the three ASEAN communities: political, security, economic, and socio-cultural. It also gives up the ASEAN Secretariat. What all that means is that now it used to be that ASEAN was a very loose gathering of nations, but now there's a lot of structure in place where you have different levels of decision making, and there's a provision provided for flow, for disputes to flow up, through the ASEAN Summit ultimately, if at each of the different levels, the countries can agree. Now, I've said that the Charter itself doesn't contain the substance on specific issues, and that is left for the ASEAN countries to negotiate separately in individual agreements. So this week we also had the ASEAN Economic Community Blueprint, which was signed, and that really lays out in some detail the implementation of a single market for ASEAN, which is one of the things that we're trying to do in the ASEAN Charter. So that gives you an idea of how ASEAN will proceed moving forward. The countries will come together and negotiate individual agreements for specific areas, which will be enforced through the mechanisms in the ASEAN Charter. And finally, the ASEAN Charter comes into force when it's ratified by all member states. Let me repeat that: when it's ratified by all member states. So every single ASEAN country must ratify the Charter before it can come into force. So long as any single country, and I think we all are thinking of specific country, declines to ratify the Charter, it doesn't come into force. And that's something that's very important, and I'll touch on that a little bit more when we talk about the position statement. The stated timeline for ratification by all countries is 1 year. Next year, the next summit will be in Bangkok, and that's been stated as the public timeline. The Philippines has already said that there will be some difficulty because of Myanmar, so we'll have to see how that goes. Now, what does the Charter talk about in terms of human rights? Because that's what we're looking for. Substantively, Article 14 of the ASEAN Charter states that establishes an ASEAN human rights body, and here I quote from the Charter, in conformity with the purposes and principles of the ASEAN Charter relating to the promotion and protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms. So what are these purposes and principles of the Charter? You can find that at the start of the Charter, and there are references to democracy, rule of law, good governance, respect, promotion, and protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms. And the Charter is up on the ASEAN Secretariat website, so all of you can take a look at that. But these are really framed in terms of broad aspirational goals without detail. So it's not like a human rights convention, which goes into very specific detail on what kind of rights are comprised in human rights. We don't have that yet. But there's also a reference in the Charter to the UN Charter and international law. And that, as a lawyer, that's actually important. I think that's an important step, because the UN Charter itself does contain somewhat detailed references to human rights and fundamental freedoms. And international law itself doesn't explicitly set out detailed human rights like right to freedom of expression, things like that. It doesn't go into that sort of detail. But by incorporating by reference, the UN Charter and international law, I think that takes us a little bit further in terms of having a sense of what the body of human rights law would be that this proposed ASEAN human rights body would be enforcing. And I think the Prime Minister clearly has actually acknowledged that, because in some remarks earlier this week, he mentioned, he was asked about human rights, and he said something like this, and I'm paraphrasing here obviously. He said, what constitutes human rights in ASEAN is still to be determined. That's still something that countries can agree on, which is both, if you think about it, it's both an opportunity and a problem. The problem is obvious, countries not being willing to agree on what constitutes human rights in ASEAN. So there can be roadblocks there. But it's also an opportunity because it gives people, civil society, and as well as the more progressive countries like private governments in the Philippines to advocate and push for a more expansive view of human rights. And that's very much a process that's not fixed in stone yet. It's a very amorphous process which people can still influence, and really that's what Maruah seeks to do. We, as part of our mission statement, we are seeking to inform and facilitate the establishment of this ASEAN human rights body. And because the process is not fixed in stone, that's our opportunity to dialogue with different stakeholders, including the government, including the Singapore government, to try and influence their thinking and their approach on these discussions relating to the terms of reference of the ASEAN human rights body and the discussion on what constitutes human rights in ASEAN. And so much for what the Charter says on human rights, because it really distance very much. But I'm now going to take through Maruah's statement on the Asean Charter, which we released earlier this week. And I think we can summarize it as two parts. Firstly, we take an optimistic view, express our optimism, and recognize the positive step that's been taken by the Asean Charter, and that's how we start off our position. But we also wanted to point out some of the possible problems in the Charter as we see it, and so I'm going to take through some of these potential roadblocks. And the first really is what do we do with non-compliance? Because we talk about ASEAN, the ASEAN Charter making ASEAN a rules-based organization. But if you drill down into the Charter, you see there's a little bit light on what happens when there's non-compliance. Essentially, the ASEAN Summit will decide. And that's kind of the